Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, esteemed members of the Knesset and cherished citizens of Israel, we gather on a day of profound joy, of soaring hope, of renewed faith, and above all, a day to give our deepest thanks to the Almighty God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. After 2 harrowing years in darkness and captivity, 20 courageous hostages are returning to the glorious embrace of their families, and it is glorious. 28 more precious loved ones are coming home at last to rest in this sacred soil for all of time. And after so many years of unceasing war and endless danger, today the skies are calm, the guns are silent, the sirens are still, and the sun rises on a holy land that is finally at peace, a land and a region that will live, God willing, in peace for all eternity.
Boy. So I gotta tell you guys, I think that it is appropriate to start off this video with some scripture, because I think scripture perfectly encapsulates the thesis of this video, okay, which comes from the Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God, okay? And I think that that is very appropriate for the topic of this video. President Trump proving to the world that he's not Hitler, that he's not a Nazi, that he is not going to cause World War III. In fact, he's proving that he's everything that the far left said that he isn't. Okay, he is a peacemaker. He is the president of peace. And I think people are recognizing that, as it appears that President Trump has ended the conflict between Hamas and the Israelis, at least as of right now, okay? And the hostages that were remaining, the Israeli hostages that were remaining, they have been successfully returned back to their homes and reunited with their families. And in the same world, you would think that everybody would be celebrating this, at least for the most part. Most people are celebrating it. Like, for example, the Israelis in Israel, they are celebrating this. They are very happy about this. The Palestinians are very happy about it.
Thank you, Trump. Thank you, Trump. Thank you.
The international community, including the Arab neighbors of Israel, they're also happy about it.
I used to say, had it not been for this gentleman, not only, who knows, India and Pakistan are both nuclear powers. Had he not intervened along with his wonderful team, during those 4 days, the war could have escalated to a level. Who would have lived to tell what happened? And similarly, here in this part of the world, in the Middle East, Mr. President, your valuable contribution along with President Sisi, I think history will remember in golden words. I wouldn't say more, except God bless you, God give you long life to serve like this for all time to come. Thank you very much. Very kind.
Yeah, but interestingly enough, there are a few groups of people in the United States of America that don't seem to be too happy with this peace agreement, okay? We're going to talk about the mainstream liberal media and the Democrat Party, but curiously, I'm noticing that leftists, right, who claim that they love the Palestinians so much, they don't really seem to be too happy about it.
Forgive. And there remain a lot of questions about what exactly happens going forward. because it's very possible that we look back on this speech as a sort of mission accomplished moment for Trump. He will have to, again, assert himself in order for anything, for the ceasefire just to be maintained. You already have Netanyahu and the president of Israel indicating that they're not done, that they want to go back in once they've gotten their hostages, their captives back. So just to maintain the ceasefire is going to continue to take presidential will. And certainly any sort of rebuilding, reconstruction, anything that even approaches looking like peace or justice will require intensive attention from this president. And the initial, 20 or 22 point plan or whatever it is that he laid out, which envisioned him running a board alongside Tony Blair, does not even come close to approximating anything like justice or peace, which is what is required in order to actually have coexistence, and an end to the cycle of violence that has gone on for years and years and years. We are a long, long way away from that. But, thank God that the people in Palestine, that people in Gaza are today able to live, able to eat, able to survive on to those next battles. I think, we have to live in that duality of this is a horrible deal. There is nothing good that is on the table for Gaza coming forward. President Trump certainly doesn't care about their humanity. And also that it is it's just, watching these little kids with joy on their face that they're able to, get some food and be able to go back to whatever remains of where they're from. It's been, I think, it's been a lot emotionally.
No, I'll be happy when there's a ceasefire.
Oh, wait, you didn't hear the news?
No, what happened?
Trump's peace deal actually went through.
Wait, are you fucking serious?
Seriously, I'm not kidding. There's hundreds of families moving back and getting all the aid that they need. Isn't that amazing?
Wow, yeah, I'm so glad to hear that.
What's wrong?
What? Nothing's wrong. Why would you ask me that?
Well, no, I just thought you'd be a little bit more happy about that.
Lock in, fuck niggas. We about to fact check this shit. First, if you fuck with me, check out the longer version of this video. Let's get it. What the hell is he talking about? I want to start by saying that yes, a ceasefire in Gaza is a great thing. But when you actually analyze the peace deal, you see it's more for Israel than it is for the Gazan people. You see, when you analyze Donald Trump's 20-point peace plan, it actually has 3 phases. In the last phase of the peace deal, Gaza is still going to be occupied by Israel. You see, in the peace deal, it says that Israel will only occupy 15% of Gaza. And Gaza is only 25 miles long, which means Gaza is going to be even more densely populated. This also means that Palestine will not be a sovereign state because it will be occupied by Israel. Not to mention that the Trump administration is also asking for Gaza to have no military power. And let's not forget that Donald Trump wanted Gaza to be a resort. So yeah, I'm happy for the ceasefire, but I'm worried for the Palestinians.
Also on top of that, you have the Trump is being controlled by Jews people, right? Those people don't seem to be too happy about this either, right? I just find it fascinating to people who, are reluctant to celebrate or don't really want to celebrate or, are trying to poo-poo the deal. It's almost as if this conflict going on is something that monetarily benefits them, right? And they like the conflict rather than having peace because that is not good for the grift, right? That's not good. But all of these individuals whose identity has been tied to boohoo whining and crying about this conflict, right? When the conflict ends, it's almost as if they got to move on to something else, right? They got to boohoo, whine, and cry about something else, which they will. They will find something, okay? They'll just, boohoo, whine, and cry more about the illegals. But yeah, I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, what you have here, okay, is a historic peace agreement, okay? And it's so historic, and clearly President Trump is the one responsible for this, right? This doesn't happen without President Trump, that even MSNBC, right? Even some of these mainstream liberal media outlets, okay, they've taken some time away to stop hating Trump and to actually give the man some credit.
Yeah, so many questions remain as to whether Hamas will indeed demilitarize, will they give up their weapons? There's a lot of skepticism about that. John Meacham, as we await President Trump, we expect his remarks in the next little bit here, and we'll obviously keep watching the proceedings there in Jerusalem. Just your thoughts. It is a historic day. We don't know if it will be the first chapter of a longer story of peace for the Middle East. The president's trying to frame it that way. We simply don't know. But even just for what today means, give us your thoughts, your perspective.
It's a terrific day for the hostage families. It's a terrific day for President Trump, for our national interests. You're right. We don't know how the story ends, but stories are made up of chapters. As Richard Haas knows, he was very much in the arena now 35 years ago. at the end of the first Gulf War, when there was a great conference in Madrid as we tried to reset the peace process. 9 years later, President Clinton, in the last hours of his presidency, made a noble attempt at Camp David. We can go on and on about the various chapters, but we should make no mistake about this. This is a victory for President Trump and for those who wish that we can govern ourselves at home and around the world, not simply by brute force, but by ideas and civilized norms.
Yeah, and with that being said, here comes the copium from the Democrats, okay? Because we all know that Trump ending this conflict looks really, really, really bad for Biden and Kamala Harris because they couldn't do it, despite the fact that the left-wing extremists in their party, in their base, was basically committing acts of violence, domestic terrorism, in order to force Biden to make this deal happen, but they couldn't do it, right? So now what they're doing is that they're saying, well, see, Trump plagiarized Biden's plan, right? That Trump's plan, what he did, actually was just all Joe Biden, right? It was all Joe Biden. It was all Democrats. Trump doesn't really deserve much credit here.
And this just in, we have a Fox News alert. Joe Biden is signaling that he should have gotten the Nobel Peace Prize. Politico is reporting that Biden World says Trump's depraved and that he's getting too much credit for peace in the Middle East. According to sources, Biden says Trump plagiarized his peace plan. That's right. Biden thinks someone else plagiarized him. Sources tell Politico that Biden says he was the one who made the peace deal possible, and Trump took too long to seal the deal. Biden couldn't do it in a year and a half. Trump just did it in 9 months. Was it Biden's idea to put Trump Tower in Gaza too?
And I know the Biden administration on its way out tried to get to a deal. It did not. What do you think is the difference here in this moment that put the Trump team ahead?
Yeah, the framework that has been put into place in this 20-point plan that the Trump administration has implemented builds on the framework of the Biden administration. And of course, there are a few differences in the plan, but it was always a phase 1, 2, and 3 approach. First, a ceasefire. Then the second phase was a return of the hostages. And then the third phase was more on the governing and what does governance look like in Gaza. And there's some differences.
And that's still a question mark right now,
that is absolutely
right?
Still a question.
Blinken says it's good the President Trump adopted and built on the plan that the Biden administration developed. What do you think about that?
Everybody knows it's a joke. Look, they did such a bad job. This should have never happened. This wouldn't have even happened. That was weak leadership, terrible. And the same thing with Russia, Ukraine. If just a decent president, not a great president like me, not a great president. If a decent president was in, you wouldn't have had the Russia-Ukraine. And this is, I would say, even more so. This was bad policy by Biden and by Obama. Remember when Bibi came and he begged that you not do what they were doing with Iran? You remember that, right? Begged them. And they wouldn't even listen to him. Everything they did was the opposite what you should have done. And it's nice that they try and take a little credit. That was years ago, and the mistakes were made years ago. And it was both by Biden and Obama.
Yeah, so you see, now you heard that. Okay, so the cope from Democrats is basically trying to steal what everybody knows is President Trump's work for ending this conflict, right? Everybody knows that Trump was the X factor when it comes to getting this done, right? Like, for example, the hostages themselves, right? They know that it's because of Trump, okay? Because his peace through strength policy, right? That is why Hamas actually came to the table and wanted to do this.
Yes, it's him. He got me out. He got the hostages out. Before, we felt like nothing is happening, you know? And I remember for me, ever since he came into the role, they were very scared of him. Yeah, they wanted terrorists. Yeah, they wanted Kamala to be chosen, to be elected. Yeah. They wanted Kamala to be elected. But as soon as Donald Trump was elected, they understood that he wants to bring the hostages back home. Yeah. So immediately the way they treated me changed. So if it's the amount of food, I could say this, that when Trump became president, yeah, the way they treated us changed. For me personally, this is what I felt.
Yeah, so again, that's not really looking good for the narrative that Democrats are trying to put out here. That no, actually Biden deserves credit for this, okay? Biden could not get this done, okay? Everybody with two brain cells to rub together knows that President Trump was the X factor here. Even conservative Democrats, right? Even Democrat voters themselves know. This is why they're on C-SPAN in tears, literally in tears over what President Trump has accomplished.
Democrat, good morning. What'd you think of the speech?
Yes, hi. That was I'm going to get choked up. A momentous speech. And I'm a conservative Democrat living here in New York, where this example of bringing peace to everyone should be thought of in New York City, where out of ignorance, the people are about to elect a guy who's pro-terrorist, pro-Hamas, who's friends with his people in Uganda, a country that lawfully executes people for being gay. And this should be a wake-up call to everyone, that people can live together. I go back, I worked as a young man for Humphrey and for McGovern, and became more conservative as I've gotten older. But this was like the best. He does it in his own style. We actually live pretty close to where he grew up. And, New Yorkers like Bernie Sanders are sort of different. They're funny. They're abrasive sometimes. But there should be a lesson to all of us that we can all live together. I think the future, if the Gazans really accept the goodness and the money that's going to come from the Arab community and from the world community, it can be a different world. And I'm sorry for being so emotional, but it's a great moment in history for everyone. And we have to reject hate. We have to reject Antifa. We have to reject Mandami. And we have to come together as human beings. I'm an old guy. Life is short. And we should live it with love. All right, thank you.
That's Philip in New York.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that, okay? You have Democrat voters and some Democrats themselves who actually have a spine, right, and can acknowledge the fact that President Trump is the reason why this happened.
Hostage families who give President Trump credit for this moment happening. Do you give him credit for this?
Oh, certainly. I mean, this is an incredible accomplishment, an incredible moment. I mean, hostages returned. You saw the pictures. I mean, the relief for the families is amazing. But second, the final end of the war in Gaza. And the suffering in Gaza has been enormous over the course of 2 years. Now, there are miles to go on a whole host of different issues that we're going to need to work on that you've been covering this morning. But you have to look at the moment and say just ending the war and getting the hostages home is an incredible accomplishment. It was a long time coming, to be sure, but certainly the president dove in and was engaged on this issue in a way that right now truly did make a difference.
Yeah, so pay attention to those who are still finding ways to be upset about this, right? They're still finding something to be mad about, something to be upset about. It really tells you everything you need to know about those people, okay, as individuals, what they really care about, specifically when it comes to this conflict. I think there are a lot of people who, again, only care about it from the standpoint of how it helps with their own personal brand or their own personal career, rather than caring about the peace in and of itself, right? And that's the irony here, because that is what they're accusing President Trump of doing, right? Well, he only cares about it for, selfish reasons, right? However, I don't think that President Trump cares about it for selfish reasons. I think that he cares about it because ultimately in the day, he genuinely values peace and humanity, right? Including the humanity of the Palestinians, okay? Despite what leftists claim, Trump doesn't care about the Palestinians. Well, I mean, if he didn't care about the Palestinians, he just let Israel do what they wanted to do, right? So he clearly didn't allow that to happen. So I would make an argument that he does. I mean, he even talked about the Iranians and helping them out as well, too, and achieving some peace when it comes to that conflict. Yeah, President Trump is a peacemaker.
Just now, you were talking about a possible Iran peace deal. You said, we are ready when you are. Yeah. Is that the ultimate goal with today's signing, to get enough?
Not Iran, but I think Iran will come along. They've been battered and bruised, and, you know, they need some help. They have big sanctions, as you know, tremendous sanctions. I'd love to take the sanctions off when they're ready to talk. But they can't really survive with those sanctions. Those sanctions are very tough. But at some point, they're going to say, we want the sanctions off. We're going to end up with peace. I think Iran is going to be fine. I know so many Iranian people. They're great people. They're smart, great people. Engineers, lawyers. I mean, they're academics. But they took a big hit. And frankly, if we didn't hit them with the nuclear, I don't think you would have been able to have this incredible this deal, this once-in-a-lifetime deal. Nobody's ever seen anything like what's happening today. And countries have all come together, all different countries. Some liked each other, some didn't, most didn't. And they've all come together. Every country has come together. And by the way, Iran did put out a statement, you know, that they support this deal very wholeheartedly. So that was in itself something. But no, I think they want to, that's all I do in my life. I make deals. And they want to make a deal.
And I think that he is like that because he genuinely, especially as a businessman, understands the value of peace, right? Because you can only have commerce when there's peace, when there's law and order, okay, when you're not at war. That is how you create commerce, right? That is how you build relationships. That's how you develop relationships. And peace is needed for that, right? And I think that is the way that he approaches a lot of these deals, right? He talks about how he makes deals. That's what he's been doing his whole life. He's been making deals, right? He understands how to frame a deal, how to come to a resolution of a conflict with everybody winning, right? And I think that is the difference between President Trump and the establishment in regards to foreign policy, is that I don't think that President Trump has a zero-sum worldview, right? Where we got to win everything. We got to get everything we want, or, you know, we lose, right? I think that President Trump is focused on maximizing the wins for everybody, right? And coming to a solution that, again, everybody can be happy with. And I think that is the approach that he's taken with this conflict between Israel and Hamas and the Palestinians. And the result has been we are closer to a permanent peace than we've ever been before, right? Now, again, will it work out? I don't know. I think there are good historical reasons to doubt that this will last, but that doesn't mean that you should poo-poo the deal or be upset with it, or, you know, be skeptical of President Trump's intentions or what he's trying to do. Ultimately today, for him, okay, and for the rest of the world, it is in our best interest for this conflict to come to an end and to work out the details in regards to how it will remain peaceful moving into the future. And the fact that we're here now, okay, we're at the table, and it seems like all of the parties involved seem willing to do that, to move in the right direction. Again, it truly is historical, and it should be something that people celebrate, regardless of whether or not it actually holds up. The fact that we're even here, okay, is something to celebrate. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.